Hello everybody, it's Ron again. We're going to be doing Monday's Rune pull. Today is May 26th and it is a new moon today. Now there are, certain ideas and beliefs in terms of when appropriate times to pull runes should take place and inappropriate times. And a lot of it is based upon moon cycles. But I've been handling this on a daily basis, irregardless of those general beliefs. The thing about runes, before I get into the reading and recap yesterday and the week's reading, there are a lot of different thoughts on this subject. I mean, from a historical, a archaeological, mythological standpoint. So to try to get a concrete answer to nearly any of your questions is really like throwing runes. It's like a game of chance almost. Sometimes you think you get the right answer, and then you read a couple more books or whatever, and you find, well, maybe that wasn't so right after all. And you use your intuition. That's the thing that we're all doing here, whether we're doing tarot, or we're doing runes, or we're throwing the bones, or looking at tea leaves. I don't know anybody, I haven't met anybody yet who likes to look at entrails, to discern. That's something that the ancient Druids had practiced. And other things, that they utilize throughout the world in order to kind of glean some type of, future or proper answer to a question that they have posed. That's the nature of divination. But it all comes down to really what your heart is telling you, what your mind is telling you, as well as what your gut is telling you. Your spirit, as well as your physical attributes, the ones we typically use in cognitive discernment. It's not just cognitive, it's spiritual too. So I've cleansed my space and everything else. I've done my prayers. I've invoked Odin. I go through the typical rituals for these things. I try to handle them with respect, in regards to the beliefs of the deities involved in all of this. And whether you were aware of it or not, Odin was the one who gave us the knowledge, taught us the magic, gave us the poetry as a remembrance of his acts to gain that insight into the runes, and then share that with us, and we are to share that with others. So that's what I'm here to do. Now, I have a eclectic spiritual background. I taught myself Christianity. I didn't really have any religious upbringing per se, but I've always been spiritual, so I've always been a searcher. And from there, I've looked at every religious text that probably exists in terms of at least the major world religions. All the Abrahamic faiths, I own a Quran, I own all the Buddhist works, all the Hindu works, and there's a lot of them. I own, of course, the Bible and the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible anyway, as well as the Babylonian Talmud, which that's a whole other subject. I won't get too much into that. I'm also what you would classify as a conspiracy theorist, although that is a misnomer, because if you have evidence, and the more evidence you have, the less of a conspiracy it becomes, and the more of a reality it actually is. Especially when you have the very people you're, speaking about giving you the information themselves. But I'll be sharing that type of information as I progress on this particular site. Right now, I want to make sure that I'm being disciplined in getting these daily readings out while I can. I do have a lot of other things going on, but I'm trying to be, disciplined and obedient in what I'm doing here. I'm trying to take it all seriously. I've been doing it for myself for the last, probably 2 years now, on a daily basis, give or take. It might be more, it might be a little less, but I've seen thousands of readings, so I have a pretty good insight, in terms of how they conduct their sites and everything else, the things that they do, who's legitimate and who seems to be basically stealing from other people. And again, this is why I elected to do runes versus tarot. There are a million tarot channels out there. Everybody's doing tarot today. And in some ways I prefer it. And I only say that only because it's more to the point in a lot of ways. There's less, I don't want to say less intuition involved, but the pictures paint out progressively what, is happening there. So in a sense, the intuition, even though it's very much still involved in that process, it's not so much, what we get when we pull runes. Runes are simple. They're symbols. They're letters of an alphabet. And they do have meanings behind them, that is true, but there's no real picture except what is produced in your own head and heart to help lead you in this. So it's a little more difficult to pick up and to do accurately, because again, like I was saying earlier, the meanings of each of the runes also varies from author to author when you're researching this early on. And I got a couple of the books here I'll share with you right now. This is the Tarot Companion. It's one of the ones that I use for the tarot. And this is the big book of tarot. It covers pretty much everything. Everything you ever wanted to know about tarot, but we're scared to ask. That kind of thing. And I got Beginner's Guide for Runes. I've had this for a couple of years. And again, runes and rune magic. So there's a lot of information in both. Some of them are very, concise, and there's a lot of history and archaeology to go with the mythology in the books. And I'm trying to stick to the original because, the oldest artifacts that we have, like I said yesterday, basically come from, ancient items, the oldest being roughly about 50 AD. The word comb written on a brooch that they had found. But what that implies is that that particular runic language had been used long before that. So, in the very least, at least 2,000 years probably. Now, I have no way to prove that, and there would be some, eggheads that would argue. They can't agree on anything anyway, so what's the difference? But, just the fact that they found that item with that word on something appropriately, what it was, requires a certain amount of education. They had to understand what each one of those letters represents in order to do so. So it had to be around longer than, the date of the object itself, obviously. And it's been said by many different authors that runes had been used magically before they were ever utilized as an actual language. Now, the language had definitely evolved, over that 2,000 plus years, especially after the Christianization of the various, European, I'll just say European and northern regions, all the way up to Albania, Germany, Norway, and all of those particular countries, and all the way down through Spain, and of course all the remainder of Europe, including England, Scotland, and Ireland. So a lot of these, aspects, from the Vikings still remain in many of those cultures. And many of the words we use today in English actually came from, that way of thinking as well, from their particular language. And the format that I'm using today differs than the one I used yesterday, where I had the camera directly overhead, so you could see that I was actually doing this legitimately, literally pulling the runes and not looking at anything in advance or anything like that. But it just didn't come out very well. My tripod, it doesn't give me a whole lot of options. So I figured by having a more personal type of situation today, it might go a little bit better. I will still, stir up the pot, so to speak. I got 2 sets of runes in my box. I've already called, like I said, invoked Odin. We do that 9 times, and that is basically done symbolically to represent and to honor his sacrifice for hanging on that tree, the world tree, over the Well of Weird for 9 days and 9 nights, while he impaled himself, removed his eyeball, and he was willing to suffer any physical pain and so on for the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. Such was his desire to know as much as was possible. So those are the attributes that he has passed on in his rune. His rune is Ansus, and Ansus speaks of wisdom, the mouth, God, things of that nature, in representation of him. So we all call upon him 9 times before starting this process and asking and invoking, the wisdom of himself, the Norns, which are the weavers of fate in Norse mythology, 3 gals that they weave the past, present, and future. It's very similar to the belief and so on of the Greeks. Greeks have a very similar myth as well. The Fates, they call them. I think that's really all, I wanted to touch on that I didn't really touch on too much yesterday. I tried to cover everything, and I actually made an 1.5 hour long video to describe and to go over all the processes of divination, both tarot and the runes. I introduced you to all the different runes, what they all mean, and so on and so forth. But that video has been trying to download for the last 2 days and has not, for whatever reason, successfully downloaded as of yet. So I'm going to have to make it in smaller, sections in order to do this. And I'll try to do a better job with my presentation and everything else as I proceed. I'm still learning all the ropes, how YouTube works, and how all the other software programs that are out there work. They're all different. So I wasn't born with a freaking phone in my hand or whatever, like, today's generations, So I'm a much older guy than I look, so. But I'm getting it. The technology's, it's slow in coming for me, but I'll get there. So with that being said, and like I said, I've already gone through all the rituals and everything else. I'm simply going to go ahead and pull the runes now. Now, before I do that, let's recap yesterday. Now, yesterday I did both an entire week in advance as well as the day. So the weekly energy was basically that of the rune Ingwas. Now, the rune Ingwas, its basic meaning in the upright, stands for the god Freyr. And Freyr is the great earth god, okay? He is one of the gods of, I'm not going to get too much into mythology. I'll just say that he is one of the major gods, and he is considered the earth god, and he's very masculine, and that's one of the words that is representative of that rune. Ingwas means masculinity, male fertility, seed, freedom, potential, conclusions, growth, a rest stage, the home, lack of anxiety. It's a time of rest, and basically is what it's getting at. And it also means that all loose ends are going to be tied off. And it reminds you to listen to your intuition as well. Okay, so all of those things are basically the overall encompassing energy for this week to go with the remainder of the daily energies as well, to be more precise, to help us really to hone in. Just like there's only 24 runes, and there's 78 tarot cards. I can't remember for whatever reason right now. So they have a much larger variety of things, and again, just like the pictures that help paint what is happening and so on, the runes give us, like I said, a simple symbol. Now they do say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures. That may prove to be true in my future as I continue to evolve and learn more and more and more about all of this. My intuition is always been very strong. I'm very empathic, so the intuition is a secondary, prerequisite. I guess they work together in some ways. You have to be passionate, and you have to be able to discern and to pick up on energy. I mean, if you feel the energy of a room when you walk in it, or you feel drained when you're done talking to a certain person or group of people, then there's a good chance you may too be empathic in some way, because you're feeling the energy, or that energy is either leaving or you're actually absorbing energy in some cases. So everything in the world is energy, everything. First and second law of thermodynamics. It's also the law of conservation of energy, so our physics is slowly catching up with what the mystics of ancient civilizations have known all along. So that's my perspective on it, and I'm just going to leave with that. So the overall energy, as I said, for the week is Inguas. Now for the daily yesterday, it was Iwas. Now Iwas was in reverse yesterday, so what that represented was long journeys, sudden changes, timing, craved change, feeling of being restless or stuck in a position or in a situation, reckless haste, mistrust, disharmony, and betrayal. So when you put all these things together, so far what we do have is that there's a sense of freedom that is your overall energy in Inguas, as well as the potential that that particular energy produces or manifests. And with yesterday's energy, we see that there is basically a long journey ahead. Okay, so now we're going to investigate further and see what today's energy looks like. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to pull my very first rune. I'll do it here openly so you can see that I'm pulling in, not looking inside the box. Let me see, what is the energy for present, please? What is the energy for present time today? Thank you. All right, so what do we have? All right, we have the rune Othala. Okay, and as you can clearly see, Othala is in the reverse. So I'm going to put that down. Now, what Othala in the reverse stands for is basically recklessness, frustration, possible legal problems, hassles, poverty, and homelessness. That could be very, very serious. Obviously that doesn't sound like it's a very good energy. So for somebody out there, the potential for a very difficult time ahead, and this goes very nicely with the energy that we had yesterday in terms of a long journey ahead. This isn't going to apply to everybody, obviously, but this doesn't necessarily always have to be a physical issue. It could also be one of the spirit or the mind. You may be going through something that is tormenting your soul, for example. Maybe you're having some difficulties with a loved one, or maybe problems at work or something of that nature. They can produce some serious issues as well. Maybe you've just lost your job. So poverty and potential homelessness can also be an issue. And it could be because of recklessness or frustration or even legal problems. So again, this is up to the individual and their individual circumstances, how this will apply to them, okay? This does apply to me as well. I've only done readings for myself for the first year or so. All right, so we have the long journey, and we have Othala in the reverse, where, again, hassles, poverty, and homelessness, legal problems, frustration, and recklessness may be an issue. All right, now what we're going to do is look at the past, okay? What is the past energy? Now, the past could be 5 minutes ago, or it could be, 5 months ago. We'll just see what happens. Past energy, please. Past energy. Thank you. Well, we got a good one. This is Iwas. Okay. Iwas, it goes in the past, and Iwas basically stands for the yew tree. And certain types of trees, herbs, things of that nature were very, very important to especially the Celtic and early Germanic tribes. They had mystical values attached to them as well as medicinal value. So there was almost a level of worship when it came to, Mother Nature, so to speak. And they even had gods and goddesses that are specific to certain types of trees, like birch, for the birch tree, for example. But the rune Iwas, and I don't know if I showed you what that looks like. That's what it looks like right there. Okay. Almost like Sowilo. Now, Iwas, basically in the upright, stands for the yew tree. It can also stand for death, or protection, rebirth, quest, strength, and dependability. So the death doesn't necessarily have to be a physical death. It could be the death of a certain, point in time, a certain action of a relationship, for example, or of a job, as well as, a person or, an animal, or whatever the case may be. So it doesn't have to be a physical death that we're talking about. But what we have there, again, is protection. That's a positive attribute of it. Rebirth is also a, very positive attribute. So with Othala being basically the hassles, homelessness, and poverty, when things are truly bad, like, the Othala energy in the reverse position would possibly indicate, that could be looked at as a death. When you're at your lowest point, there's nowhere else to go, as they say, but up, right? And that's the energy of Iwas. Iwas gives us the potential of a rebirth. And that, again, goes along with the energy also of Ingwas, which is the overall energy of the week. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not going to be an easy journey. I'm going through that right now as well, so I understand that, trust me. All right, so the next energy that we want to pull is two different types of influences. And the way that we do this, we call this the runic river. You set out what looks almost like a cross, like the Christian cross. The first one you pull is your present. The second one you pull is your past. Then you pull the two influences, the things, the energies that affect that present, if you will. And then finally, you're going to pull out what has yet to happen, your future, okay? So right now, we're looking at the influences that affect our present. Influence, please. Influence. Influence for today. Thank you. Okay, we have Degas. Degas. think you can see that. Yeah. Looks like an hourglass. Now, just like Ewas, it's one of those runes that you cannot reverse. The symbol remains the same no matter how it comes out. So you have to use intuition. And in order to do that, we're going to look at the other two runes to get a feel for what the energy actually is. Is it truly all negative in this case, or does it have potential to actually show us that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak? So what does Dagaz mean? Well, Dagaz in the upright means dawn, daybreak, day itself. It also means transformation again. So we're seeing a couple of different scenarios that are implicating that as being a part of this journey, this process. So transformation, balance. You may be out of balance at this point, and everything about spirituality is about learning about balance. Balancing your masculine with your feminine, your light with your dark, your good with your bad, if you will, your angels with your demons. We all have them. And unlike Christianity, we don't ignore that fact or pretend as though that's not a reality. Instead, we embrace it and we confront it straight on. Okay? Now, I am a Christian too. And I know that sounds a little peculiar, a Christian man pulling runes, but it's really not. When you do the research and realize divination is seeking help, guidance, and so on of the divine. It's no different than praying and waiting for a response. So it's not the method, it's the motive behind what you do that matters. If your heart is pure, if you really mean to help people, and you're trying to do good in this world, and I'm not saying that I'm not familiar, of course, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I know all of that. I love philosophy too. So I've studied Stoicism and many of the other, Carl Jung and many other philosophers. So I look at this as a huge, umbrella of information. I studied mythology. I studied, world religions, science. I love science. I'm a teacher, in fact. So I teach mechanical, electrical technologies at a trade college. But I also use my common sense. Just because somebody across the pulpit told me that such and such is true doesn't mean to me that it's true. I have to prove it to myself first. Okay? So I've gone a great length to try to discover what is and is not real in this matrix of reality that we all live in. So back to Dagaz. Dagaz, again, is about balance, ambition, and growth. So again, positive attributes to go with Ewas for our past. So again, our present may be a little bit difficult, with Othala being recklessness, frustration, legal problems, hassles. And again, I understand I'm going through many of these things. So these readings are for me as much as they are for everybody else out there who are, needing to hear these things. All right, so the very next thing we're going to do is pull another influence. Think again of you standing in the middle of the river. To your left is an influence of some sort of energy. To the right is another influence of some type of energy. That's what we're looking at this as. Behind me is the past. In front of me is the future. That's what a runic river actually entails. And that's what we're pulling here to go along with our weekly energy. So again, let's get another influence, please. Another influence. This one to the right. What have we here? Oh, we have Dagaz a second time. Okay. And that doesn't help me to clarify, but let's just go over this again. Dagaz in the upright means daybreak, dawn, transformation, balance, ambition, and growth. In the reverse, it means attitude, radical changes, completion, endings, limits, blindness, and hopelessness. Okay, now that would go a little bit more in line with Othala. So we can look at this one of two ways. We can look at the Degazes, one being positive, one being negative, the angel on each shoulder kind of a thing, with the Ingwas being the overall energy. So things are still in the open. They can go either way, depending on how you actually, in your decision-making processes continue on. So our future will help us to see more clearly what the overall energy is for this day. So that'll be the last rune that we pull. So can we get the future energy here, please? Energy for the future. Thank you. Alright. Well, just like yesterday. Actually, it was the rune 4 today. So it looks like Ewas in the reverse is for the day that I pulled yesterday for the week. So when I pulled for the week, I pulled the overall energy. That was Ingwas, what I told you about earlier, and what that represents. And that's very positive rune, and it stands for, again, the god Freyr, masculinity, sexuality, the soul, fertility, ancestry, honor. It stands for many, many good qualities and things that are associated with masculine, presence, a strong and healthy masculine presence, not what everybody's talking about today with toxic masculinity. Not that I actually believe that, but hopefully you can make that discernment too. But Ewas in the reverse basically stands again for the long journey. So we started off with that, and we're ending with that same thing. It's going to be a long journey, whatever this is, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or it could be, some type of an illness as well, as that is part of, this particular rune. Long journeys, sudden changes, timing, craved change. If you're feeling restless or stuck in a specific position or situation, reckless haste, mistrust, and disharmony, as well as betrayal. So again, these situations are going out to the community, so it will be different for each and every one of the people that are out there, and that's the beauty of this energy. It's a little different than the tarot, because it's not as I don't want to say it's not as specific, that's not accurate, but because there's so much more meaning, if you will, to each of these runes, it can really encompass a lot of different scenarios or a lot of different situations for people. But again, the overall energy for the end of this week is there is light at the end of the tunnel. So as long as you are using discipline, you are thinking about your decisions before making them, and you're not making them rashly, as we've been cautioned against today. If you pray, or you meditate, or you seek out your wisdom for your ancestors, source, God, whoever it is that you speak to, if you are spiritual, and I would imagine you are, or why would you be here? Then seek out their guidance and their advice. I mean, I certainly do. I make no qualms about it. I give them thanks all the time. Hell, I even yell sometimes at them, to be honest. I always feel bad. I ask them to forgive me afterwards, but sometimes, let's face it, life has its way of, punching you in the jibs. And you wonder why, especially when you try to do right and try to do good and try to help, and that's probably the reason why. This world, it doesn't treat people that are empathetic very well. In fact, they use it as a springboard for mistreatment a lot of times. And Oftentimes they see what takes tremendous amount of strength sometimes, because you want to fight back. You often want to punch somebody in their jibs or whatever, and instead you try to give them some clear, concise advice and try to share love with them. And you know, sometimes they accept it, sometimes that's all it takes to get them to reconsider and to do the right thing too. Other times it makes them do something stupid, and then you're forced to do something stupid, and then you both feel bad. Well, I don't know if they feel bad. They may feel bad if they get, you know, twisted up like a pretzel or what have you, but other than that, anyway, that really is the end of the reading for today. And like I said, these will get more comprehensive and better as we go. I may actually start incorporating some oracle cards and tarot readings to accentuate the readings as well, because I think that people have been groomed to that. There are so many tarot readers out there. So, all right. Well, I can't allow this to get too long. It will never allow me to upload it onto the YouTube. So, I bid you all farewell and have a wonderful evening, and I will see you again tomorrow. Good night.